20 years after the mountain claimed her husband, a shadow appeared between the iron gates. A buckskin gelding, starved and scarred, a tarnished silver crucifix on a leather cord around his neck. The crucifix had hung around John's neck on his wedding day, and on the day of the accident.
That cross. It was on his chest the last time I saw him. Estrella.
Her legs gave way. She sank onto the gravel, hands clutching her face, sobs tearing from her chest. 3 ranch hands stood frozen, hats clutched to their chests, staring at the impossible horse.
Senora, that horse. It's him, isn't it? After all these years.
His cross. That's John's wedding cross. He died wearing it.
The buckskin took 1 step closer, and the crucifix swayed, casting a tiny shadow on the dust. Carlos gripped her elbow and pulled her upright. She kept staring at the crucifix, her breath shallow and ragged.
John kissed me goodbye that morning. He said he'd be back before sundown. Then the rock slide. The horse vanished too. We searched for weeks. Nothing. We held a funeral with an empty coffin.
But he's here now, Senora. With your husband's cross, that means something.
Inside the cool adobe, she lifted the telephone receiver, her fingers trembling. She gave the cold case unit the details, the date, the mountain, the horse's name. Then she waited. 2 hours later, a dusty sedan rolled through the gates, and 2 federal investigators stepped into the afternoon heat.
So this horse wandered in after 20 years, wearing a crucifix that belonged to your husband.
If that object was with the remains we never found, then this animal might know where they are.
We'll follow him. First light tomorrow. See where he takes us.
The next morning, Isabel's truck rattled through the gate. She found her mother on the porch, still clutching the crucifix.
Mama, I came as soon as I heard. You are not going up there, are you?
I can't. But take your father's compass. He never rode without it.
Estrella stood saddled but riderless, the crucifix gleaming as Carlos tied the lead to Luis's saddle horn.
He leads, we follow. No one rushes him.
The old horse walked through the gate and turned sharply north, away from the mountain trail where John had last been seen.
This isn't the way to the rock slide. He's heading into the deep Sierra.
20 years he's been out there. What will we find?
The group shrank into dots against the sagebrush, the sound of hooves fading into the canyon. Whatever Estrella was leading them toward, it was not the site where the search had given up hope. The first day was a grind. Estrella moved haltingly, stopping often, but refused to turn back.
He's not lost. He's just old. Every step has a purpose.
On the second day, they found a hidden spring, shaded by cottonwoods. Estrella drank deeply.
Look at him. He's been here before. This isn't random.
On the third day, a shallow overhang. Inside lay the bones of a young horse, bleached by years.
He wasn't alone all this time. He had a companion. That foal must have died years ago.
20 years of loneliness, and he still remembered exactly where his rider fell.
On the 4th morning, Estrella stopped at a rock wall. Hoofprints led into brush. He nickered. Carlos dismounted, pulled back the branches and froze. A dark opening gaped in the stone. Whatever Estrella had protected, it was inside that mountain. Flashlight beams cut the darkness. The air was dry and still, untouched by rain for 2 decades.
There, against the back wall. Dios mío.
John's skeleton lay against the rock, a frayed serape still wrapped around his shoulders. Beside his right hand, a .38 revolver.
That revolver's been fired once, and he's not positioned like a fall victim. He crawled here.
His left hand is curled around something, like he was holding a pen. This wasn't an accident.
Luis carefully lifted a leather pouch from beneath the serape. The wax seal was unbroken.
He wrote something. This has been sealed for 20 years.
Senor Reyes, if he wrote his last words, his widow deserves to hear them first.
Martina photographed every angle while Luis sketched the scene. They would open the confession when the evidence was secure. The letter remained closed, but the cave had already spoken. John Ortega had not died by rockslide. Luis broke the wax seal and unfolded the yellowed paper. The handwriting was shaky but legible.
I am writing this because I will not survive the wound. My brother Gary sent a man to kill me. A shot from the ridge. The horse bolted, but he caught me in the side. Estrella carried me here. I do not know how long I have. He has been stealing from the ranch for years. I found the ledgers.
Gary, he was at the funeral. I worked for him for 20 years.
The evidence doesn't lie. This confession, the revolver, the ledgers, we have a murder case now.
We'll take everything back tonight. Estrella will lead us home one more time.
The cave felt suddenly heavier, the weight of 20 years of silence pressing down. They collected the evidence, and with Estrella leading, began the long ride home. At sunset, the small procession rode through the iron gates. Deborah was waiting, Isabel at her side.
You came back. Did you find him? Tell me what happened up there.
Luis dismounted and placed the tarnished crucifix in her open palm. She stared at it, her lips trembling.
This was his. You found him wearing this.
Senora, your husband was murdered. He wrote a confession. His brother Gary was behind it.
Uncle Gary? He sat at my father's funeral and pretended to mourn. I will never forgive this.
Where is he now? I want to look him in the eye before he faces God.
He's in the village hospital. Cancer. He might not have much time left.
Then we go tonight. I won't let him slip away without hearing the truth from me.
The investigators nodded. They would drive Deborah and Isabel to the hospital within the hour. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and old secrets. Gary Ortega lay beneath a thin blanket, his skin gray, his eyes sunken.
Who are you? I didn't ask for visitors.
Federal investigators. We're here about your brother John.
Luis placed the tarnished crucifix on the bedside tray. Gary's eyes locked onto it, his breathing quickening.
That's nobody. I don't recognize it.
Your brother wore it on his wedding day, and the day he was shot. We found it with his remains.
He wrote a confession before he died. He named you. The embezzlement, the hired killer, all of it.
Gary's body began to tremble. Tears carved paths through the hollows of his cheeks.
You can't prove anything. A dying man's letter. It's not enough.
We have the revolver, the ledgers from a metal box in the cave, and his widow is waiting outside.
The door opened, and Isabel stepped in, her face stone cold. In her hands, a worn leather ledger.
Uncle, I found your ledger in the ranch office. The numbers don't match the bank records.
She flipped through the pages, revealing altered entries. Gary's face crumbled into something ugly and broken.
I just wanted to scare him. I never meant for him to die. It went wrong.
You stole from my father for years, and when he found out, you had him killed.
Gary sobbed, his wasted body shaking. He could not look at the crucifix.
A notary is downstairs. Sign the confession, and it ends here with the truth.
A man in a gray suit entered with a seal and a document. Gary's hand trembled as he took the pen. He signed, the pen scratching in the silence. Then his head fell back, eyes closed. The confession was complete. Gary had admitted to everything, but his sentence would be delivered by a higher power. 2 days later, Gary Ortega died in his sleep. He left no last words. Deborah and Isabel met with the family attorney in the hacienda living room, the signed confession on the table.
He admitted everything. The embezzlement, the murder. We want the ranch restored.
The attorney filed an emergency motion to reopen John's estate, citing the confession and mountain evidence. The judge, recognizing the dying declaration, called an expedited hearing.
The revolver had been fired once. John's letter named his killer. There is no doubt.
I found Uncle Gary's ledger. He altered the ranch books for years, and my father discovered it.
My husband died protecting our family's legacy. That horse carried his truth for 20 years.
The judge ordered Gary's estate frozen and recognized probable cause to transfer ownership pending final review. For the first time in 2 decades, John's name was legally tied to the murder, not the accident. The gavel fell, and the words echoed. The Ortega Ranch is returned to Deborah Ortega and Isabel Ortega, effective immediately.
He did it. He brought it home.
This land is ours again. You all still have a place here.
Senora, we've been waiting for this day.
The ranch hands lined up, each one shaking Deborah's hand, their hats over their hearts. That evening, Carlos led Estrella into the central stable, a bed of fresh straw waiting.
You did it, old friend. You kept your promise.
The old horse lowered his head, and Deborah pressed her forehead to his, the crucifix dangling. For the first time in months, the hacienda felt like home, but the family's grief still hung in the air, and the horse's vigil was not yet over. 11 months passed. Estrella rarely left his stall now, his thin legs trembling with every step. Deborah spent hours brushing his dull coat, remembering when John first saddled him as a young horse.
You were so proud, weren't you? When he chose you from all the others.
A journalist from Tucson arrived, notebook in hand, having heard of the horse that solved a murder.
He carried the truth for 20 years through mountain storms and loneliness. He's earned his rest.
Mama, everyone knows now. The story's in the newspaper. They're calling him the Vaquero's horse.
That evening, Estrella did not raise his head. Deborah knelt beside him, the crucifix dangling over his face.
Don't go yet. Not without seeing the new foal, the one we named after you.
The horse's breath was shallow, his eyes half closed, but he nickered when Deborah touched his muzzle. He had kept his rider's secret alive, and now the world knew. There was peace in that. Before dawn, the stable was silent, except for a weak wicker. Deborah slid to the straw and lifted his head onto her lap.
You were his star. Now go find him, Estrella. He's been waiting long enough.
The old horse's breathing slowed. His eyes closed, and the tarnished crucifix rose one last time and fell still. Deborah wept without sound, her hand resting on his scarred cheek, until the first light crept through the window. That evening, under a violet sky, the ranch hands dug 2 graves on the hill, one for John, one for his horse.
Estrella kept his promise. Now he keeps watch with the patron forever.
John's casket, retrieved from the cave, was lowered beside the horse. Deborah placed the crucifix on the wooden marker.
It belonged with him until justice was done. Now it marks the place where your story is told.
Isabel placed a worn horseshoe at the base, and Carlos lit a candle that would burn through the night. The grief would never leave, but it had found a shape, and the vigil of the Vaquero's horse had reached its end. The community raised a small stone marker, a simple phrase carved beneath the names.
Together, always.
Inside the hacienda, Deborah placed the tarnished crucifix on a small wooden table beside John's wedding photo.
Your cross, our wedding picture, and now his shoes. A faithful horse.
Isabel rode out each morning, her silhouette stark against the hills. She had become the rancher her father raised.
She's got her father's way with the stock. Good hands, clear eyes.
John, the truth is out. The ranch is ours again. We laid you to rest beside the creature who loved you most.
She folded the letter and tucked it into the small drawer beneath the shrine.
Rest now, both of you.
The ranch breathed again, its wounds closed, its future held by the hands that had never let go. Months after the burials, Luis and Martina returned to the cave, searching for the metal box John's confession described. Martina reached into a dark fissure and pulled out a rusted metal box, its hinges frozen. Inside lay a leather-bound ledger, pages brittle but legible, detailing every peso Gary had stolen.
He thought he'd buried the proof. John made sure the truth would outlast him.
At the press conference, Deborah fastened the crucifix and faced the cameras with a steady voice.
My husband died defending our name. Now the world knows John Ortega was never dishonorable.
Isabel held her mother's hand, the ranch's title secure in a file beside her. The ledger was donated to the Sonoran Historical Society, an artifact of justice for all to see. The case file closed. John's death was ruled homicide, his killer named in the official record, and on the hill, the stone marker stood under the sun. the crucifix swaying in the warm breeze. 1 year after Estrella's passing, Deborah climbed the hill alone at sunset, the stone marker glinting behind her. She unpinned the black mourning shawl and draped a deep blue one over her shoulders, the color of the evening sky.
No more black. He'd want color.
Isabel walked up behind her and stood in silence, then pointed toward the pasture below.
He's not gone, Mama. He's here.
In the pasture below, a bay foal with a white star kicked his heels, a mirror of the horse they had buried.
You named him Estrella.
This year's colt. The first of many, I hope. The ranch remembers.
For the first time in years, a real smile crossed Deborah's face, the kind that reached her eyes. The sun sank behind the Sierra, and the wind carried the scent of sage and new beginnings. Years earlier, a young vaquero mounted a buckskin gelding for a mountain ride, a silver cross gleaming on his chest. After the shot, the horse carried his rider into a hidden cave, then vanished into 2 decades of silence. In the cave, John wrote, "I am writing this because I will not survive the wound." The horse guarded that note until his old age drew him back through the iron gates. The widow collapsed. The investigation began. The cave yielded its secrets. Estrella lived just long enough to see justice rise, then laid his head in her lap and let go. Now the crucifix rests on a shrine, beside a wedding photo and a worn horseshoe, a legacy not of bitterness, but of steadfast love. And on the ranch, a bay foal with a white star kicks up dust, the name Estrella echoing in the wind. The vaquero's horse had not returned to haunt them, but to heal what was broken. 5 years later, a wooden sign hung beside the iron gate, Estrella's Haven Equine Rescue. Isabel guided a young woman through the stable, where rescued horses dozed in clean stalls.
He brought the truth home. Every horse we take in deserves that same chance.
They stopped before the shrine, the tarnished crucifix bright under a flickering candle.
My father was wearing that cross when he was murdered. For 20 years, his horse kept it safe.
The young woman stretched out her hand and touched the worn silver, her eyes filling. She had come here after her own family's betrayal, hoping that justice could still find a way.
Estrella lived just long enough to see justice rise. Then he laid his head in my mother's lap and let go.
Outside, a bay foal with a white star raced across the pasture, a living echo of the horse who started it all. The legacy wasn't just in the cross, but in every life the ranch restored. At 78, Deborah sat on the hacienda porch, a child on each side of her. She pointed at the tarnished crucifix hanging on the wall behind her.
Your grandfather's horse carried this cross alone through the mountains for 20 years.
Her grandson tugged her sleeve, his eyes wide.
He never gave up, even when he was starving. He knew the truth had to come home.
Her grandson asked her to tell the story again. Deborah nodded, her own eyes glistening as the sun dipped behind the Sierra. She began the story the way she always did, with a shadow at the iron gate. The children leaned in, and the old cross caught the fading light. And so the tale was passed on, not as legend, but as a living promise. Night fell deeply over the hacienda, and the shrine on the porch glimmered in the silver moonlight. The tarnished crucifix hung above the wedding photo, and beside it lay Estrella's worn leather bridle, its reins still curled. A gentle wind stirred the candle flame, casting flickering shadows that danced across the adobe wall. The crucifix caught the light, its old silver glowing like a quiet prayer whispered through the decades. The camera pulled back, revealing the hacienda under a canopy of stars, its windows dark and peaceful. The ranch slept, the hills dark, the graves on the hills silent under the watch of the night. And in that stillness, the promise held. Truth endures, love never fades, and even the smallest creatures can carry the heaviest burdens. The screen faded to black, and the story of the vaquero's horse became part of the mountain wind forever. Credits rolled in silence over the image of the burnished cross and the worn bridle. The end. Long after the story was told, the shrine remained on the porch, the crucifix catching the first light of dawn. The leather bridle rested beside it, the tool of a horse who had carried truth farther than any man. Isabel walked past it each morning, a quiet ritual before she rode out to tend the herd. She would pause, touch the worn silver, and remember her father's voice. The foal named Estrella grew strong, his white star a beacon on the golden hills. Deborah, now in her final years, often sat alone on the porch, her eyes on the shrine. She needed no words. The cross spoke for all that had been lost and found. The ranch continued, not in spite of its past, but because of it. And when the wind swept down from the Sierra, it carried the faintest echo of a horse's hoofbeats, a promise kept, a truth brought home, and a star that would never fade. The years rolled on like the clouds over the Sierra, steady and unhurried. Each dawn, the crucifix on the porch caught that first sliver of light, unchanged. Isabel grew older, her hands as sure on the reins as her father's had been. She taught her own children the weight of that worn silver, the story of the horse who would not forget. The bay foal with the white star became a strong gelding, but he would never wear the bridle that hung on the shrine. That bridle belonged to memory now, and memory never aged. On the hill, the stone marker still stood, the names John and Estrella clear beneath the sun. And when the wind blew, it still sounded like a horse's quiet nicker, a greeting from the past. The ranch endured, not as a monument to loss, but as a testament to loyalty. And in the center of it all, the cross kept vigil, silent and eternal.